Hey, Dee, is a baptisia that comes up on the other side of the garden from where the other baptisia are, is that a weed?
It all depends. Is it in a good spot?
Well, it's kind of hugging a rose. And
Oh,
and then on the other side is Amsonia. So it's not in a great spot, but it got big enough to actually bloom before I noticed it.
oof. So those have really deep roots
Yep, they do.
because they're a prairie plant,
They
and
are.
you're going to have to make a decision soon.
I think my decision's already made because it's pretty big.
It's going to get bigger. I have one that's huge right now. I mean,
Oh,
it's because of the rain. The rain has made it huge.
everything
But
is huger.
anyway,
Cut off those seed pods on the baptisia. Put that on your list, Dee.
I'll do that. I'll do that. Let's get started for real now.
Okay.
Well, welcome to the Garden Angelus, where we chat about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I am Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where, in spite of my reductions, I still have a really large garden out in the country.
And I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre and probably less than 10 miles from Gainsbridge Fieldhouse. That's what it's called.
Yeah, you're just all smug because you won again the other night. We are Garden Angelus because we love gardening and we want you to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But that's enough of who, what, when, and where. Let's move on to this week's episode.
Good Lord, you have the world's longest garden update. So let me get a little drink of water and you go.
Well, let me get a sip of my tea with delicious water that has become out of my new reverse osmosis water filtration system that I had installed
Cool.
yesterday. So it is quite delicious.
I bet it is.
Anyway, right after we recorded last week and I talked about those clematis that were on sale at Menards, I ran down to Menards and I bought 4, and the variety was HF Young. It wasn't Noble, and that wasn't even a variety down there. So I don't know what crazy thing. Anyway, did that, got those all planted on Saturday, and actually mowed the lawn on Saturday, which I don't normally do because that's for working people. Retired people like me like to mow through the week. But anyway,
You've been a little busy.
Monday, Garden Club met at a lavender farm at Dolly's Lavender Farm down by Franklin, Indiana. It was delightful. It's out in the country, and she's got rows and rows and rows of lavender. And then during the season, she has you pick flowers. So anyway, that was really good. And you could see way out the horizon, and forget that half a mile down the road is a huge warehouse place. But anyway, it was beautiful. I have trimmed more shrubs. I picked peas. I've picked I think the last of this big crop of strawberries. There'll be the smatterings of them through the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Picked
Yeah.
lettuce, pulled out some bolting lettuce. Like I said, I mowed. I weeded out the vegetable garden. It really looks beautiful. And it was a bit muddy, but it was like a break in the weather. And that cobra head, it was just a muddy mess when I was done. Just washed off with a hose, and nothing hurts that thing.
Because the handle is made of a polymer. So
Yes.
you can just wash it off. It doesn't even have a wooden handle. And then we're going to be an affiliate with Cobra. I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh,
Cobra had reached out to us and they said, "Hey, would you guys like to be an affiliate?" And I was like, "Of course we would, Annalise, because we're actually friends with those people." I didn't know they had an
well,
affiliate.
more importantly, we use all the tools. We
We
love that.
do. We've used them for years. So that was kind of funny. And then it looks like you also cut out your Amsonia, which, can I just point out? Go ahead and say what you always say about your Amsonia.
What do I always say about it?
That when you cut it, you have to wear these special clothes because it has that glue-like
Oh, yeah.
cap.
Yeah. So I got up first thing this morning, and I thought, I don't have much time, and I had a couple of errands I wanted to run. I thought, you know what? I'm putting on those clothes. So I found those pants, a long sleeve t-shirt, disposable gloves, even old pruners that I don't normally use for anything else. I ran out there and I cut back all the Amsonia. That's when I discovered the baptisia, and I'm like, look at you all hiding back here. It was a sticky mess, and then I got myself all cleaned up, and since then I have been to like Target, I've been to the library. Here we are recording.
So guess what? This year, that Amsonia, which I don't like, That's that type with the thicker leaf. I like the thread leaf Lansonia, but of course I didn't know that when I planted the other. It's gone because it was part of the garden I got rid of.
Yay!
I can't tell you how many plants that I walk through my garden and I go, I got rid of that. I'm so glad. And people are going, but wait, it's a native. Yeah, it's a native. So is the thread leaf. Just plant the thread leaf.
Yes, and then plant it where you want to keep it because it is the dickens to dig out. Now, I have
Yeah, you're
dug
going to
out
dig it out.
Amsonia on the other side. Remember one fall I just
Yes.
started digging? Every once in a while, a little sprout will show up and I'd get in there and pull it out. But I'm telling you what, Plopper's Field, where that was, Plopper's Field is an absolute mass of greenery. I've never seen such growth.
Yeah, it's like that here too because of all the rain. Okay, my update is shorter. I thought it would never stop raining. It rained every day. Oklahoma is 10 inches above normal. And for the first time since 2019, every county in Oklahoma is out of drought. Did you catch
That
that?
is wonderful news. Yes.
That part's really good. The bad part is it is so wet out there. It's unbelievable. So I kind of let my pots dry out for a day to try to just get us back on track. And the sprinkler system's been off. Yeah. But today is sunny. Today is, well, partly cloudy. It's supposed to rain tonight. And one of my friend Teresa up and she has Oak Grove Gardens up by Tulsa, and it's raining cats and dogs there today. I was like,
Oh, my.
she goes, "This is not Oregon." I had to laugh. All right. So I've been in between all these storms and stuff. I've been out there working and I've been putting on my tick clothes and going out there and working hard. And I also spray myself with the picaridin because the mosquitoes are a nightmare here right now. So I've been out there weeding every day, cutting back, planting more seeds for zinnias and cosmos. I moved some plants around, which since it's been raining all the time is a good time to do that.
That
I
is
tied
true.
up I tied up my 8 foot tall Rudbeckia maxima, and that was a chore, but I got it tied up. And let's see, what else? I'm still Chelsea chopping. Does that ever end? No, it does not.
Well,
And
on
I
the
found,
Chelsea chopping.
yeah,
So I looked at this Shorts goldenrod that I have,
yeah.
and I was trying to think, should I let that grow to its natural height? I mean, it has a really arcing form in the fall, or should I go ahead and Chelsea chop that? And I think for right now, I'm not going to chop it back.
I don't always chop back Rudbeckia. Sometimes I do.
Not Rebecca. Did I say
No,
Rebecca? I meant
no,
goldenrod.
it was me. That goldenrod.
Okay, it's
Solidago.
on the brain.
Sorry. Solidago. Yeah, I don't cut that one back. I don't cut back that Rudbeckia either because you can't. It starts out with a cluster of cabbagey leaves and then it just sends up these shoots. So there's no way to cut it back. You just have to tie it up. But I actually had a thought when I was out there when I was working on it. I looked at it and I said, you might go at the end of this year because I am tired of taking care of you.
Hmm.
Everybody's horrified because that's another native. What I'm cutting back right now is Helenium. My Helenium gets huge, so I cut it back. I got it half cut back, got distracted, went to another part of the garden, forgot to cut the other half back, so I got to do
You
that
know,
this
that's never happened to me, Dee.
Never, never, ever.
Never.
I'm also deadheading daylilies daily. I bought a new terracotta pot on Facebook, and yeah, got to deadhead a few more roses. Let's play favorites.
Okay. My
Go
favorite
first.
is
Tired.
oak leaf hydrangea, and in particular one that's on the side of my house. And that I literally got a quart container with this shrub in it. And this thing is like 4 feet high, 4 feet wide. It has massive blooms on it. Some of them might even be like a foot long, beautiful, creamy. And so I'm like, you get to be my favorite this week because I literally planted and forgot it several years
Wow,
ago.
that's a
And
great
so
one.
it's a beautiful one. And I am sure that Proven Winners gave me the plant. And so I'm going to go look on their website and see if I can figure out which one
Which
it
one it
is.
is.
But if I
Yeah.
can't, our listeners should know that if it's on the Proven Winners website, it's probably pretty good because they tend to pull them if they're not performing well.
They do. They're getting ready to send us another one that's a
Hmm.
smooth hydrangea. And in fact, I got the notice it was shipped, but then it never came. So I don't really think it was shipped. You know how that
Well,
happens?
you got the notice that it was ordered, I think. I got the same notice.
Maybe. I don't know. Great Garden Plants is sending it. So, and I think, which one is this? This one's Hydrangea arborescens. Is it an Incredible or an Incredibelle? I don't remember.
It is one that they want us to review in 2026.
Yeah, and they sent me three Incredibelle sublimes last year.
So, and I will tell you, I have another hydrangea that is a beautiful mauvey pink,
Yeah,
and it's also from Proven Winners, and I need to go look because it's going to be on my Bloom Day post in a bit on Sunday. Because it is gorgeous and full. I mean, this is perfect weather for hydrangeas to really pop and really show what they are made of. This is not that,
yeah.
Anyway, that
Not
was my
a,
favorite.
not. It's not a dry year. In other
No,
words.
it's not by any stretch of anybody's imagination dry.
Okay, so in my garden, it has to be the daylilies. And there's one in particular that I can see from my window called Angel Constellation. And it's a melon self with a beautiful green throat and a little bit of a gold edge. That thing has never bloomed like it's blooming this year. And so I took a picture of it for our newsletter.
Excellent. I was going to say, if we can harken back to the letter G, and we talked about GM and Prairie Smoke,
Yeah,
that out at Dolly's Lavender Farm, they've got nice signage. And so it said I could see Prairie Smoke from the distance. And I went over there.
yeah.
They have had so much rain that literally there was like a foot of standing water on each side of this bed. And then there were a couple different flowers, and Prairie Smoke had already bloomed. And it was not happy. It was not happy with the
No,
rain.
it can't handle lots of rain. It wants things kind of dry. Likes the dry prairie, which it does not like it here because sometimes we get years like this. I can grow that GM totally tangerine though. I
Oh,
can grow
yeah.
that like nobody's
Yes.
business.
I'm
And it's
growing
a
that one.
great one. Great, great plant. All right, question of the week. You ask it, I'll answer.
So it goes like this. I think this was a text you got, maybe, or an email.
Probably
Good.
an email.
Okay.
Yeah.
Says, good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. Just wanted to check in and see if you have any advice for a good purple rose bush. I'm buying one for a friend who lost her dear mother-in-law recently. I believe her mother-in-law's favorite color was blue, but I don't think blue is an option for roses. It is not.
No.
Just wanted to see if you have any suggestions for good purple, blue, or anything else unique, and any recommendations on where to buy. So she must be local to you. She has a
She
lot of
is.
pink and peach, so wanted to do something different. Thanks for any suggestions.
Okay, so this is one of my clients, and she reached out. And so, because I probably wouldn't answer something this complicated if it wasn't a client. But the best purple rose in the market, in my opinion, is Sunbelt Plum Perfect. There's also Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci, yeah. And so Leonardo da Vinci is more of a pinky purple, but Sunbelt Plum Perfect is an absolute purple. It couldn't be more purple. I'll take a picture of it for the newsletter because mine happens to be blooming in a pot right
Okay,
now.
I'll make a note.
So there are no purple roses. I also mentioned that she could get a hibiscus that is in the blue purple range because a lot of hybridizers have been working toward that. And then I gave her two links. I explained that we are past, in Oklahoma, we are past the time to buy roses. I assume in Indiana, I know it's prime time because our friend Teresa Byington is showing roses every day, and she does have quite the rose garden. So you could buy one up there locally, and Plum Perfect is one that's pretty easy to find. If you can't, you can order it from heirloomroses.com, which is a good
Right.
company. They are not cheap, but they are good roses. And it's also a family owned company. So I have a couple of links. I will put them in the newsletter for everyone. I have to say, I love both of those roses. They're both just beautiful. And it is the first year for both of them, and they're doing extremely well.
Well, excellent. So
And we have
then,
another one.
yes, we got this from Heather via an email text that send me a text.
Mhm.
And she writes, Hey, I absolutely love all your podcasts. It's my go to listen while gardening. Well, thank
How
you, Heather.
nice.
I got started about 3 years ago growing my gardening area outside. I've loved it all, but I'm trying to decide about making pathways and what I want to use. I know you all said that small gravel rocks were not the best way to go. Definitely not pea gravel. If I want to
Why?
make walking paths in some of the areas, what do y'all recommend? Pavers, mulch. I live in eastern North Carolina, and my acre-sized lot used to be part of a pine tree farming
Ding,
area.
ding, ding, ding. Okay, keep going.
So we have about 20-ish trees out back. Dee says,
If I lived in northeastern, if I lived where she lives in North Carolina, I would use pine straw because everybody there uses pine straw. It's a great acidifier for their soil, a natural one. It decays slowly because of all the essential oils in it. And I think it would look great. And you added to it, you would put,
well, if I was going to make a pathway, I might put some pavers and then I
I
would
would
put the
too.
mulch, the pine mulch around the pavers just to give it a little bit firmer footing. Although you need to be careful when you lay pavers like that because if you get them all lopsided, then you've just created an obstacle course and you don't want anybody to go in there and trip and fall. I would also, if the pathways are permanent, I would put down like a fabric underneath just to keep
Yes.
less weeds. Now, you probably will eventually get weeds, but put a nice fabric, make sure it's all level, put down a couple of pavers, decorative pavers of some kind if you can get them, or, I think it's cute when
Use
people,
flat rocks.
flat ones, and cute
Yeah.
when people make them and like maybe write things. There's so many ideas on Pinterest that I would like to do for my pathway. But anyway, that's what I would do. And we hope this has helped Heather out.
I also want to point out that you could use decomposed granite if you have a source in your area. It does not become as big a seed bed as mine do. Mine are they're not even pea gravel. It's river rock. And that river rock is a seed bed deluxe. I constantly am working on it. I also like brick pathways if you've
Right.
got an access to brick, but it's really expensive.
Here's another suggestion. In her area, if they have any summer garden tours, and a lot of towns around me, like down in Franklin, down in Bloomington, over in Irvington, they're having garden tours. And so it's a great way to go out and see what other gardeners have done with pathways and kind of figure out, is this something where they spend a lot of money with a landscaper, or does this look like a do-it-yourselfer kind of thing? And so go out and look for what other people in the area are doing. Maybe copy
And
them.
that reminds me, a week from tomorrow, we're recording this on Friday. So it will come out next Tuesday if you subscribe to the newsletter. I am going to open my garden that Saturday. So not
Nice.
tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. So yes, there's a lot of garden tours going on right here, right now. And in fact, my Daylily Club is going to tour tomorrow. So right
So
here.
your garden will be open on the 21st.
Yes, it'll be open on the 21st.
All right.
And it'll probably be open from 8 to 1
I will do a
because
quote.
it gets too hot. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
And after a while you're like, you people can go now.
I wasn't going to say that, but yes.
Here's the quote. We who live in quiet places have the opportunity to become acquainted with ourselves, to think our own thoughts and live our lives in a way that is not possible for those keeping up with the crowd. Laura Ingalls Wilder.
And that has to do with gardening because you know what? Do you.
Do
Whatever it
you?
is you like,
Are we
you do
keeping up with
it.
the crowd, or are we the ones that people are keeping up with?
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. I just think there's a lot of pretty pictures out there, and whether it's homes or gardens or beekeeping or whatever hobby it is, and some of it's more realistic than others. I would say we are realistic. Okay,
Yeah, I think
flowers.
so. N, the letter N. N is for, and we started off with nasturtiums, which we both grow. Now I direct sow them in May in my garden, and they will last through the summer. And then in
Mhm.
fall, they will take off like nobody's business.
So that's not how they live here.
No, that's
In my
not.
world, you can either start them indoors if you want to, or you can plant them outside direct sow in about March. You might get some freeze damage on them. It just depends on what kind of spring we're having. And they last until about July, and then they poop out. If we have a nice June, if we have a hot June, they last till about June. I am testing 3 of them. So The All America Selections National Garden
Yes.
Bureau sent us some seeds, right?
Sent you those seeds. I
Oh,
didn't get
that's
them.
right, just
I had
me.
to go buy some seeds up at the Menards.
Well, I bought some seeds too of different kinds because I had a lot of nasturtiums this year. So my potager is full of nasturtiums. But the ones I did for AAS are baby red, baby gold, baby yellow. Okay. Of those, I absolutely love baby yellow. It is the
Sounds
most
pretty.
beautiful lemon yellow. Grows in these little tight balls, right? Baby gold, not so big on it. I don't love the color. It's just okay. Baby red is quite nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I love the foliage. It's sort of has a grayish tint to it, the
Blue
green.
green.
Yeah, it's blue-green, that's a way to put it. Yeah, I love that. It's just a contrast to everything else out there.
And especially with the red ones, because right now I have probably 6 different kinds of nasturtiums blooming, and the red ones have a lot of blue-green foliage, the darker red ones especially. So they're just great to grow in your vegetable garden. They're edible. They look great on salads. They are good companions for roses as long as they're the small size. I'll take a picture of baby yellow.
In
In
mine,
fact, I'm gonna do a bloom day post with you this month.
oh, that
I
is
got a
so
lot of
nice.
flowers. Yeah.
So the nasturtiums in my garden, they're seedlings, and they've just come up within the last week and a half. And what I'm impressed with is I space those out about every 8 inches, and I tell you, almost every seed came up, so that's nice.
Yeah, they have good germination rate, I think. And then the next one is Nigella, which is love in a mist.
I do not grow. I have never grown it.
You've never grown it?
No, I don't know
It
what the
takes
deal is.
basically the same care as larkspur.
Yeah.
You plant the seeds at the same time, you throw them out there at the same time. Here, that's February. Or if you already have larkspur growing in your garden, shake the seeds when the seeds come to fruition. Same thing with Nigella. Here's my thing about Nigella. I have a little bit of trouble growing it. I'll be honest. It does
Hmm.
okay here, but it doesn't reseed like it does for other people's gardens. I like it.
Huh.
It's pretty.
That's
Bees
interesting.
like it. It's a good plant. Good cottage garden plant. Comes in blue, pinky, purple, and white.
Now, we will say that it is a self-sower,
For some people,
but not for
it
D.
doesn't self sow much here. Occasionally it will.
I've heard that
And the
it can
funny part
self-sow.
is, well, it can. It's supposed to. Sometimes it won't be in my garden for years, and then all of a sudden one pops up, and I go, "Well, hi there."
That happens here on occasion. And also those plants that go missing, and I am missing a couple of plants, and I'm like, "Where are they in this lush?
And they
Where
may come
are
back.
they?"
Who knows? Oh, it's so funny. Okay, so do you want to say anything else about Nigella?
Well, I have nothing else to add because I don't really grow it. It's a pretty blue
How
flower.
how about New Guinea impatiens?
New Guinea impatiens. If you love impatiens, which
I like
people
these
that
better.
all shade that all they can grow is impatiens are just like anything but impatiens. But if you love them and you have full sun, you have to get the New Guinea impatiens, and they will bloom beautifully in the full sun. In fact, they demand full sun.
So here, the full sun is a little too hot for them. You have to do morning sun. But if you get sun patiens, which are a type of New Guinea impatient, then they'll grow in the sun as long as they have water and they will bloom forever and ever. Amen. You cannot grow New Guinea impatiens even here in full shade. So they've got to have at least morning sun, but they'll melt in our full sun.
Right. And some of them have a delightful yellow and gold variegated foliage, which is a nice
Hmm.
something different. They come in the usual impatient colors, red, pink.
Pink,
I'm just not into
white.
them.
They're okay. I like sun patients, and actually, in my pots out front that have west sun, but also some shade, then I grow the sun patients in them.
So for me, I think they make a great potted plant.
Yes, they're
I
fine.
wouldn't, and they could
They're not.
also grow in the ground, but put them in the pots, put them in your containers.
You can see them better.
Yes,
They don't have they don't have clusters of blooms like impatiens do.
that is correct.
So, okay, enough about those. I think this one's funny. Nosegays.
I just threw that out there when we were making the list. I'm like, where does it
Yep.
start within? And these go back to the medieval times, And
I
then
didn't know they went that far back.
yes, they did. They
Because
might have,
people stunk.
well, Tussie Mussies, yes. People stunk, as the Grinch might say. And
So they
so
had to do something. So they had something up by their nose.
yeah, you get as many scented flowers and you put them up by your nose. But a sweet little nosegay is just a lovely little bouquet. And you could make one out of your own garden and wrap it in a little paper cone or whatever and be a lovely gift for somebody out of your own garden if you don't feel like giving a great big floral arrangement. So I'm going to try to do more nosegays this summer out of my garden just to enjoy.
Nice. Have fun. I
Little
like
quote.
little deals. Simplicity is not the opposite of wealth. It is the door to the riches you already own. Alan Cohen.
That is quite interesting and quite good.
It's a good thing to be simple.
Yes.
I'm not very simple. I'm kind of a grand millennial gardener, unfortunately. I was
Let's
looking around my potager and I have so many pots now, and I was like, I think this is out of control.
So
All right.
we're going to talk about, before we talk about two vegetables that neither one of us is growing. For the record, I am a baby boomer. Are you a cusp of the millennials?
I'm a no, I'm a cusp of Gen X.
Gen
Isn't it
X.
Gen
I get
X?
those
Yeah.
confused because there's like
I'm
Gen
a
X,
cusper.
and then there's
Yeah.
the millennials, and
No,
then
Gen
there's,
Y.
so
It
Gen
goes
X.
baby boomer, Gen X, Gen Y, millennial, Gen Z, and I don't know what the new ones are called.
Oh gosh. All
I
right.
know.
Well, let us go back to
Whatever.
vegetables. So the first one that we put on the list that we are not growing is New Zealand spinach, which isn't really spinach.
No. And
It's
I've eaten it once. I thought it's
Tetragonia
wasn't my thing.
tetragonoides. Takes about 50
Yeah.
days to get maturity. It is a perennial. They
Yeah.
say it gets about 2 feet tall, has distinct arrowhead shaped lime green leaves that have a spinach like taste. And I got that from Territorial Seeds. But it's usually grown as an annual. You sow it in
They're
the
yucky,
spring.
I think.
And so Dee says they're yucky.
I didn't
We
like it. I grew it one time when I was a brand new gardener because I love spinach. And I thought, okay, I will try to grow this because it's hot here. And I grew it once and I said, I don't like that. I don't like the texture. I don't like anything about it.
Well, and that I was reading the reviews on the Territorial Seed website, and like the first review is, "This does not taste anything like spinach."
Mm-mm.
So
And the texture is different.
I
So
I
there
wonder
you
if you
go.
could bury it in a salad and maybe people wouldn't notice.
I don't know. No, thank you. I'm not growing it anymore. I grew it once. But you know what? Listeners, if you want to grow it, I say go. Why
Well, if
not?
you want to be experimental, you might like the
That's
taste of
right.
fake spinach, or I'm sorry, New Zealand spinach.
The next one is Nettles, which I'm highly interested in. I take it as a supplement.
So it's actually called stingy nettle, which gives
Right.
you a hint. It's
Yeah, wear gloves.
Urtica dioica. I don't know how to say that. Anyway, very big. I always think about the Brits, and they put stingy nettle tea leaves in their
Yeah,
tea, but it's a fast growing herbaceous perennial, and it's usually regarded as a weed, but is
yeah,
occasionally grown as a garden plant. And so I have seen stingy nettle show up as a weed, like in a pot or whatever.
yeah, me
And
too.
you only have to grab it once with bare hands to know that you were never doing that
Wear
again.
gloves. Yeah, wear gloves. It's really good for you. Nettles are really good for you. They're high in vitamin A and vitamin C, and they're also considered a mast cell stabilizer. And they're often put in combination with other supplements of bromelain, which comes from pineapple,
Mhm.
and what's the other one? Quercetin. Quercetin C, and that's what I take. I take a combo supplement that has all three, and they're really, really good for you.
Yes, and so has those little fine hairs, and so I also
Ouch.
saw on Instagram, I think it was a British gardener who was harvesting nettles from the wild, and so anytime you forage, know what you're getting for 100% sure,
Yeah.
know that it hasn't been sprayed, have permission if it's not your land, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he said it's it's best harvested in spring, that once it gets a little bit more growth on it, it starts to become not as appetizing. They become bitter. That's true of a
Yeah.
lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you have to harvest in spring. I think it was set up that way because people didn't have any greens or anything all winter. And so when the new spring growth came up, they could go out and forage and get dandelions and
Sure.
poke salad, things like that. You wouldn't eat poke salad later. It would be yucky and it would be
So he,
poisonous.
yeah. So here's the other thing. And this is from the spruce. We'll link to this article if I can find it again. But anyway, it said it injects a burning, stinging chemical when the plant is touched or eaten. So
Ouch.
know what you're doing if you are going to harvest this and make a tea or something out of it. Now, interestingly, it says the leaves have a similar taste to spinach.
I think they do. Yeah.
So,
So you
and
aren't going to eat it raw. Let's put it that
no,
way.
it is a host food for many butterflies. I don't know which ones. And I think it is one that if I was going to plant it, I would be very, very, very careful because I think this one could self-sow.
Yeah, I think it is a noxious weed in many gardens. So just
Yes.
something to keep in mind.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Nick, want to do the quote?
So that's all we had for the letter N for the vegetable garden. So yeah, I'll do a quote.
Yeah.
No book is really worth reading which does not either impart valuable knowledge or set before us some ideal of beauty, strength, or nobility of character. J.R. Miller.
So you picked out our book. I think we did this book a really long time ago, or we talked about it on our blogs because we both had it. I don't know that I still have it, so I can't hold it up. You going to hold it up?
I'm going to now hold it up.
It's Radical Prunings, a novel of officious advice from the Contessa Compost by Bonnie Thomas Abbott. And it's a novel,
I would use
sort
the
of.
word novel rather loosely. So
Yeah.
I'm about halfway through, and it is told month by month. And so she started in, I'll tell you, March.
It's a
I
pretend advice column.
It's a pretend advice column. So she starts off sometimes like with dear readers and tells like a little story. And then she'll have question and answer, a couple questions
Yeah.
and answers through each month. And as it says on the back, garden vicariously through the collected horticultural columns and catalog offerings of the highly opinionated and wickedly delightful Mertensia corydalus. She can be cutting when vexed, charming when supplicated, and she always gets in the last word. So it says, gentle as a rose and just as prickly. This Miss Mertensia welcomes botanical questions, but bristles at inquiries about crabgrass and turf maintenance. As she answers her readers' letters, she reveals more than she intends about her life, her relationship, from volleys with her ex-husband, celebrated garden designer Norton Doyle, to questionable interactions with her employees, Miss Vong and Tran, and her precarious state of mind. Anyway, it is kind of a fun read. I've been reading a little bit about it at night. Have you ever heard of a book called The Debt to Pleasure?
No.
It says, in Radical Prunings, Bonnie Thomas Abbott does for gardening what The Debt to Pleasure did for cooking.
Huh.
Dig down deep with one of the most appealing narrators to emerge in recent years, a woman wise about all things horticultural, but not nearly as certain when the human heart is involved. It's kind of fun. A little bit
That's
snarky
a,
at times, very
yeah.
sarcastic at times. I think came out in I was going to say 2011. Let me double check that because, we would not want to give bad information. 2005, I was way off. And
Yeah.
I looked up Bonnie Thomas and believe she was over in Ohio.
Huh.
Ohio. And she either died in 2014 or 2024. I don't know. But I forget which one.
Okay, good. I was like, do people not know? That's like 10 years apart.
No, I mean, Carol doesn't remember. Carol looked her up
Got
because
it.
she could be a lost lady of garden writing.
She could be.
But
I like the one you picked this week.
I did. We'll get to her in a minute. But anyway, that's the book that we picked out this week. It is one. Good used copies are available. It is obviously no longer print. I would check your local library to see if they have it. It might be
Mm-hmm.
a delightful summer read. for anybody that's into gardening. Radical Prunings, a novel of officious advice from Contessa Compost by Bonnie Thomas Abbott. And when I say novel, I love epistolary novels. Is that the way to say that?
Yes. Yeah.
Which are told by diary journals or, correspondence back and forth. So that's why I do like it from that aspect. But if there's a story in here, it's pretty well buried.
Gotcha. It's mostly an advice column.
Yeah. And I think for the most part, all the advice is pretty sound. She did say that ants on peonies help open the blooms, which we know that's bogus.
Mm-mm.
But other than that, that's the only
But it
thing
was
that I
repeated
thought.
a lot back in the day.
That's the only thing I'm thinking, okay. Do a quote.
Inch by inch, life's a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. John Bythway. And our dirt this week I saw on Facebook of all places. And it is in Maine and on a place in Maine called Verona Island. And it says at the beginning of this, at the end of a dirt road, a couple of dozen wizened apple trees stand sentry in a grassy field sloping down to the river. And yes, I read that first sentence because it was beautifully written. So John Bunker is an apple historian, and he says that this area is a treasure trove of living history. And these are apple varieties that were commonly grown 100 to 200 to 250 years ago. And they think that that one of these in particular, they have a picture of it, is the oldest apple tree, I think in the United States, for sure in Maine. So, and he doesn't know for sure. Let's see. Okay, so he said he got an email that said, "You found the only apple of this variety we know of in North America." And it's really old. And it is because this other guy named Cameron Pease, he's a tree fruit geneticist at Washington State University who's in charge of apples. And
Right.
he said, "Oh my God, yes, this is it." That you don't hear that much from fruit geneticists.
Yeah, you don't.
And so the name of it is the Drap d'Or or de Bretagne, which is the golden cloth of Brittany. That's in French. And he says it's one of the few historic apples that are the genetic ancestors of many of the common varieties we eat today, and that the Verona Island tree is the only known living specimen in North America. And they're not much to look at, Carol. Are you looking at them on?
I am looking at them, and they're
They're kind of
probably
ugly
apples.
little apples.
You would chuck those over to your chickens or,
Yeah.
give it to a horse to eat. But that's, yeah. But, I clean that up and slice it up. I'd sure give it a taste.
I would too. And I don't know if it's a cooking apple or if it probably is a cooking or it's a cider apple because that was very popular at the time. And it has a cider apple look to it. So now they've taken a stem of it, a limb of it, and they've grafted it to the Maine Organic Farmer and Gardeners Association's Heritage Orchard, which is in Unity, Maine. I just thought it was the most interesting story.
It is.
Of course, I love apples, so thought that was cool dirt.
Yes, that is a very good start. I will do a quote and we'll go down our rabbit holes. When the frogs dream and the grass waves and the buttercups toss their heads and the heat disposes to bathe in the ponds and streams, then is summer begun. Thoreau, Journal from June 8th, 1850. Nice.
Yeah, and so what's your rabbit hole? I know what yours is because I read your deal.
My rabbit hole is, I went down the rabbit hole after Cassandra Dans and I brought in her books.
I don't know if I have any of her books, but I used to read her column.
So Mrs. Green Thumb, How I Turned a Boring Yard into a Glorious Garden and How You Can Too. And then her second book, by the way, this won the gold when GardenCom was Garden Writers of America. And then this, they called the awards the Quill and Trowel, and this won a Quill and Trowel award. And
which is very, very cool because it was not easy to win one. And I read that book. It was really good. And I read that one too. Mrs. Green Thumb's Plows Ahead.
Yes. So sadly, and she tried to be a comedian
and she was, but she was
but she loved gardening and she interjected gardening into her comedy. And she got discovered by various agents and different people, and she got invited to write the book. And she sadly died so young, age 55, of breast cancer.
Yeah, she did. One of my favorite columns that she ever wrote was A Better Compost Pile. I will never forget it. And how she was a lazy composter.
Now, here's the
And
sad thing.
I'm with her on
The
that.
sad thing is, she wrote the back page humor articles for Country Living Gardener.
Yeah.
And when I was moving from my other house to this house in the 90s, I was in a different garden club, and I'm like, I just cannot keep everything. Hello, kitty.
Mhm.
I
He's
cannot
been
keep
bad. He's
everything.
biting me. Sorry. Go ahead.
So I took those and I gave them to members of that garden club. I mean, they swarmed on that like bees to honey and took all of
Oh,
them
I
off
bet
my
they
hands.
did.
Because then I was looking in my closet to see if I had any, because I cannot find those columns online. And here's the sad thing. She was on Fox News in the morning show. She would do segments. She was on Regis and Kelly and Regis and Kathy Lee in the mornings, did all kinds of segments.
Mhm.
I only found one extremely poor quality video on YouTube of that woman. And it was a segment from a show that she did, Mrs. Green Thumb's garden show or something. And she had filmed it up in Canada like in 1998 or something. And it sounded like, if you can think of a variety show with a garden theme.
Yeah. I read your column and I was like, I don't know how well that would go, but okay.
So anyway, there was just one segment on there, and she has the person lie down on a couch like she's a therapist, garden therapist.
I don't
And
like your hortens.
yes, like Hortense Holove that I used to write a garden column on my blog. I have Hortense Holove is way in the past. She hasn't written anything in a long, long time.
She has a.
But anyway, Cassandra Dan, so I went down the rabbit hole after her, and it's surprising as much as she was also on the radio and on television. I could not find clips.
It just must have been the time period. So my rabbit hole really, well, it has slightly to do with gardening, but not really. I happen to have, as one does on YouTube, I happen to happen upon this lady who does these series on women. And this was the Cushing sisters. And I started watching it, and it was quite the rabbit hole because the Cushing sisters, one of them became Babe Paley, the Babe Paley, who was married to Bill Paley, who ran CBS Corporation, turned it from
Yes.
a radio corporation into a huge news organization. And Babe Paley was one of the swans of Fifth Avenue, who Truman Capote, in my opinion, basically slandered. It was terrible. And they were like best friends. And she never spoke to him again after he wrote these terrible things about her in this magazine. So, and he didn't, and then, well, you can't defend Truman, but Truman didn't think he was doing anything bad particularly, but he was. You don't say things about your friends, even if you subtly disguise them. So there was that, and it was a long video. And then Bill and I ended up watching another one, which was about the Duchess of Devonshire and her and the Mitford sisters, which is Debo, which you and I have talked about. But Babe Paley, we've talked about this before on the podcast. She was really good friends with CZ Guest. I can't believe I'm remembering all these names. CZ Guest designed gardens for people and was quite the
Yes.
gardener herself.
Yes, she's a lost lady of garden writing.
Yes, she is. Babe designed her own gardens at their estate that was out in the countryside.
Right?
And that's actually where she lived most of the end of her life. I don't know if she ended up in the apartment at the very end or not, but she also sadly got cancer. In her case, it was lung cancer. And
She
it
smoked
eventually,
incessantly.
she did. All of them did. And it's too
But,
bad. But they all kind of quit after Babe got sick.
well, here's the thing. Yes, and Babe did design her own garden. And I will bring together Babe Paley and the Duchess of Devonshire in this way. I believe it was
Okay.
CZ Guest, whose husband, her first husband, I think I don't know if they got divorced, probably, but her husband was a cousin of Winston Churchill.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I would guess that maybe CZ and Babe, that they might have hung out with the Duchess of Devonshire. I don't know. They did hang out with the Duke and
I would
Duchess
think
of
so.
Windsor
Yeah.
when they came to
Until
town.
until they got to be so controversial and then they quit hanging out with them. I do want to shout out to the other two sisters really quickly because they don't get as much attention and they were very interesting in their own right. Mary Benedict Cushing is the one that was married to her, I think. No, Betsy Cushing Roosevelt Whitney was married to the Roosevelt's son, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's son. And she actually helped FDR do a lot of his entertaining when Eleanor was out traveling. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I
And
do
then
remember that.
they got divorced. And then she in turn married a Whitney and a Jock. His nickname was Jock. She called him Jock. Interestingly enough, he was a very interesting guy, and she helped him kind of channel his pursuits. And she became a huge, huge organizer of all things that had to do with the Whitneys, including the Whitney Museum. And not only that, they gave tons of money away. He was deeply affected by World War II. And so he helped servicemen. He just did all kinds of things. They were probably, of all of three sisters, they were the happiest. And then Mary Benedict Cushing, well, she married a loser and had kind of a hard time, but he had a lot of money. They all ended up pretty wealthy, but Mary lost some of her money.
They had an extremely dominant mother who really pushed them into high society. They were in the Society of Boston, and she pushed them into high society. They were expected to marry quite well.
Yeah, because that's how women got ahead back then, a lot of the time. Interestingly, their dad was a cardiologist, and he's a very famous cardiologist, and he developed a lot of techniques that are still used today. So that was quite the rabbit hole.
Yes. And you could spend an entire summer in the Cushing sisters rabbit hole. You could spend a summer and then some in the Mitford sisters rabbit hole. And we've been down that Mitford sisters.
Yes, we have. And Debo's rabbit hole. She was interesting too. So interesting women.
Yes.
What was yours?
Well, I was just going to say, I read a Substack, and I will not say the person's name until I go back and look it up, but she tends to write about the people like the Mitfords and stuff. I'll look that up. People might be interested.
Yeah, look
in
it up because I
Substack.
might be interested in that.
Yes.
I always find interesting women interesting. So garden commissions. What are you going to do in your garden this week?
So, this morning I did that Amsonia cleanup. I'm so happy to have that behind me. It looks to be a rainy start to the week. So weather permitting, shrub trimming, weeding. I'm going to sow more green beans. Water is needed. I'm going to fertilize everything. I'm going to get into the swing of summer, as they say, because for me, summer kind of starts. I go to the family reunion. It's always the same weekend of the year. And that's kind of like, okay, at that point, summer is really, really, truly here. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much it. But it's going to rain through, I don't know, off and on through Tuesday. So I make no commitment.
They're saying we might have rain tonight. I hope not. I didn't write anything down, but I'm just doing the same thing. I'm mulching, fertilizing, and weeding. And I don't really mulch my perennial garden at all. I mulch. Did I say mulch? I don't fertilize my perennial garden at all.
Right.
Sorry, I had to having to put my medicine in my water. Let's see, what else will I do? I'll just cut things back and just tidy things up. And then, like I said, I'm going to open my garden on did you say 21st? Is that what
I did say the 21st.
Yeah. So I'm going to open it on the 21st. So I'll try to make things look nice for that.
Yeah. And I do. I mean, I look down this one path that I have that snakes through this bed. And it's like you wouldn't, unless you knew, you wouldn't know there was a path there. It's just so overgrown. And I gotta tame the wilderness, as they say.
Me too. And I also have a section that's really empty because I took some things out. And so I've got to think about I think I'm going to put that new hydrangea there, the one that they're sending us.
That sounds
okay.
Good. I'll wrap us up. Thank you for listening to The Garden Angelist. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
If you subscribe to our free newsletter, you'll get a link to listen to the podcast a day early and links to the products we discuss. Some are affiliate links. Plus, go over to YouTube and see us in person. Full episodes show up on Tuesdays.
If you want to help support us, use our affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we're in a small commission and it costs you nothing.
Or you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout, or you can make a one-time donation through PayPal.
Thank you to everyone who has done so. It helps us pay for podcast hosting.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the garden gate. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.